All right, so I've just finished cutting down all the rods and the threaded rod to length. Now there's no longer rods just hanging off the edge, so everything is starting to look a little nicer. So from a guy in the Discord, the link to join that is down below, by the way. I got an idea for, instead of using a separate printer and scavenging parts from it to use as the XY gantry, I already have essentially a Y gantry here, so I might as well put the laser module on this itself and use this as the X module.
So a lot has changed since the last time I showed you the model. I no longer have the Ender 3 in here as the XY gantry. I've used the idea from the guy in the Discord to turn the wiper into the Y axis, and then just mounting this piece of T-slot up here as the X axis, and then using this rod here as the support. So that way it's supported from both sides, so there's no wobbling. And then once I get the laser, I'll be able to measure it and make a mount that allows it to fit here. Probably using these screw holes here so that it lines up and can do its thing.
The reason I didn't do this originally is because my original plan did not use T-slot as the wiper. I was going to use something else, but I had T-slot, so that's just what I ended up using, and it's actually working pretty well. So my plan is I'm going to move this 2x to up here like this, and then use 90-degree brackets to hold it to this. And then I'm going to use, I have another carriage like this thing back here with that the wheels can mount to, that fits around a 2x. So then I'll be able to ride that along here, or be, along that. And then I'm going to use, I have one more smooth rod and a bearing to fit it that'll ride on this side. That'll give some support to this, so that way it's supported from both ends. So then I can have the X gantry be sliding along here, and the Y gantry be sliding along here. The wiper's going to need to be servo actuated up and down, so that way when it's doing the actual printing over here, it's not constantly wiping back and forth. It has to be lifted up out of the way. That's pretty easy to do with the firmware, so I just need to figure out the mechanical solution, which shouldn't be that hard.
I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but I am going to be making this whole project open source once I'm done with it. The only reason I'm not uploading as I go is because just in case someone's following along, I don't want them to have to keep updating their files and doing everything as I make changes. So I'd rather get to a 1.0 release first and then upload everything so people can follow along up to that point then. If you like this project and you want to talk about it more or just engage with other people that are watching the same content, join the Discord I created. Links down in the description.
I finally got more filament. It's supposed to be delivered last Wednesday. It is now Monday of the following week, and it's finally here. So now I haven't loaded it yet, but now I'll be able to print out some more parts and keep going with this project. So I've mounted some end support. So now I don't have it wired up to move under its own power, but so I'm just moving it by hand. But now it still wobbles a bit, but that's because I don't have the eccentric nuts that I need to tighten this down. So if I move this side, you can see it wobbles a fair bit, but if I move that side, I don't know if it comes across on camera, but I can see it in person that these wheels are is where the wobble is coming from. So I just need to tighten these once I get those eccentric nuts, and it'll be a whole lot nicer. But yeah, I mean this rod is only held on to the corners, one back there and one here, but it is rigid as hell. So I need to straighten that out. I didn't realize how crooked I mounted that, but this mounts up there. Then I've got the laser gantry or whatever I'm calling this up here. I'm going to need to reprint this part eventually because I don't have the motor mounted yet up here, and I didn't think about that when I was designing it. But because this is now mounted to the end here, I now have nowhere to mount the idler bearing for the pulley. So I'll need to reprint this with an idler mount in it, which isn't that big a deal, but that's just something I need to do. But then I need to mount the motor over here, and I need to figure out some way to attach the belt to this, because as it stands right now, the belt has no way to grip to this because this part originally was driven by the threaded rod that went through there. So the threaded rod has been repurposed, wherever it is. Here it is. My plan for the wiper, since I've repurposed what was originally the wiper as the guide for these rollers, is actually, I think, pretty clever. I'm going to get a drywall knife. So those are basically big flat pieces of like steel usually, or maybe aluminum, that are meant for, you know, when you put the mud coat on drywall, you use that to scrape it, to smooth it out. Obviously whoever did this wall didn't do that. So my plan is to mount the knife here with a servo controlling it, so that when it's time to wipe, the servo drops it down to wipe. Then this will go along and wipe. And then when it's time to do the lasering, the servo pulls it up. It doesn't need to lift it up high, just a couple of millimeters, just enough to get it out of the way. So the next thing I really need to buy is actually the laser module, along with everything I just described with the drywall knife and the servo and that kind of thing. Because right now, I mean, I can build out the mechanical solution as much as I want, but without the laser, there's not a whole lot I can do in terms of testing. All right, I'm gonna redesign this part for the bearing mount so that it has provisions to mount the idler pulley in there. And then once I do that, I will mount the motor and run the belt. And then I'll show you guys a test of it running under its own power. All right, I'm printing out the bearing holder that goes in the end here that this mounts to. You saw a previous version of it in one of the last clips. I redesigned it so it has an idler holder for this pulley. But before it's mounted, I wanted to show you the bearing clamp system that I am using. So because this piece was originally designed to be driven with the lead screw instead of belts, it had no way to melt. It had no way to mount the belts. So here, I'll just pull it off. So I designed this piece that it acts as a spacer. This nut here isn't being used to hold anything on, meaning that like this hexagon hole is a through hole. Like the nut isn't actually clamping this plastic piece to it, so the bearing is still free spinning. And you're not gonna be able to see it, but there's a small lip in there that presses against the inner race of the bearing, so that way it won't bind. So I can torque this down as much as I want without it being an issue. This piece is the same width as this spacer setup I have. Yes, I know using nuts as spacers is not ideal, but so I already have one side zip tied on, so the belt is there. And then I'll need to, once I have the idler bearing on, I'll be able to feed this through and zip tie it, and then I'll be able to trim off the excess belt. All right, I've just finished mounting this in with the idler pulley mounted in there. The belt zip tied to the two belt holders down there, and the motor and everything, it's all tied together. And I've even used some extra screws to mount the driver board to the side here, and done a little bit of cable management just so that I can hook it up to power and control it without everything being a mess everywhere. So next thing I'm going to do is hook it up to power and make sure that all the motors are turning the right way and try it out. All right, so here I've got it all set up. I'm increasing the y-axis by 10 millimeters at a time. That looks like it works. Let's do the X. All right. There's the X. And I'll do Z while I'm here. Well, I went a little too far, but that's okay. You can see Z moving now. Cool, so that means that all three axes can move under their own power, which is very good. I still need to put a limit switch on this guy, but I need to figure out where to mount a limit switch first. The next step will be getting the laser and get out of here. The next step will be getting the putty knife to use as the wiper mechanism here. So that'll scrape along here. And the servo and everything to go along with that. If anyone's wondering, since I'm using the Tronxy X1 hardware, this is a Melzi 2.0 board, which doesn't have any servo pins in it. My method of adding a servo will be to use their extra pins in here. There's something called a pin 27 board. Okay. Something called a pin 27 board that clips into here and gives servo pins out of this. I think I lose like a buzzer or something like that if this had one. This doesn't have one, so I'm okay with that. And then I just need to in firmware tell it that that pin is a servo. So yes, the next thing I need to do is order the servos, the pin 27 board, and the putty knife. And then I need to also design a way for the putty knife to slide up and down in a constrained way, so it's only moving up and down, so it can't move forward and back or left and right in any way. I'll probably use the pieces of the linear rod that I cut off, that I still have those, so I may use those with some more linear bearings, because like I said, it only needs to lift up a couple of millimeters. So I'll figure that out though. Alright, so that's where I'm going to end this video. The next video is at the mercy of whenever Amazon is going to deliver that stuff. So they've been taking forever to deliver things lately, so we'll see. If you like this video, consider hitting the thumbs up button and liking it. That helps me out to know that what you guys like to watch. If you want to follow the project and see where it ends up eventually, hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell so that way you get notifications whenever I upload. If you have any thoughts on my project, there's a link down in the description to join my Discord, so you can talk to me directly there, and that's the best way to get in touch with me, because I try to read the comments, but I don't get notifications for the comments, so I don't see a lot of them. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, comment the word clamp down below. I did banana last time, so we're doing clamp this time.